10 billion people enter a cable car survival game where one bad descent kills. Sumu starts equal, but his soul awakens a rule nobody else reports. Each personal level gives 3 talents, and cable car levels give 3 more. His first picks reveal intelligence and force attacks toward monster weak points. Hidden chests and combat openings become predictable advantages. Stronger survivors die while Sumu farms goblins and upgrades his shelter. His next cable car talent adds another attack whenever the first lands. By day 2, one thrown axe hits a charging corpse twice. Daily intelligence immediately marks a safe bronze chest and a far riskier silver chest. His other rule-based talent proves itself when even careless axe swings are redirected into lethal weak points. On Blue Star, every person aged 16 to 60 is suddenly transported into the universal cable car survival game. Sumu wakes inside a glass carriage barely 1 square meter across, suspended roughly 100 meters above dense jungle. Identical cable cars hang 10 meters apart along an endless overhead line disappearing into gray fog. His cabin contains only a fire axe, a hiking backpack, a control panel, and a survival handbook. The handbook states the cable car is his protected base, as long as its structure remains intact. In idle mode, it moves at 5 kilometers per hour without fuel, while upgrades increase space and defense. Once each day, survivors may descend to scavenge, but returning requires locating an extraction point on the ground. Night travel is strongly discouraged because darkness brings attacks capable of damaging unattended cable cars. Sumu's stats shows ordinary human attributes and a level 1 carriage with 10 armor, 2 cubic meters of space, and no fuel. A regional announcement confirms supplies and treasure chests are already scattered below, making every landing choice immediately dangerous. Instead of jumping blindly, Sumu checks regional chat and discovers survivors received different, basic tools but similarly poor starting conditions. With almost no reliable information available, he decides survival must begin with understanding the rules before chasing loot. 4 large characters adorned the cover. Survival rules. Sumu picked it up and flipped it open. 2. With no manual input, the cable car enters idle mode. Idle mode consumes no energy and travels at a steady 5 kilometers per hour. The base cable car measures 1 by 1 by 2 cubic meters. Upgrading it expands internal space and boosts defensive capabilities. Sumu follows the map toward the nearest extraction route, instead of chasing higher-tier loot that his current strength cannot safely contest. It is strongly advised to use this ability during daylight hours. Everything here operates under a data-driven system, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. The moment he finished reading, the handbook dissolved into modes of light that coalesced into a virtual interface, floating before Sumu's eyes. Name Sumu Level 1. Race Human. Hunger 80. Strength 8. Constitution 7. Agility 8. Spirit 16. On the right, set a miniature model of his cable car. Vehicle Cable Car Level 1. Armor 10. Maximum load 2 tons. Internal space 2 cubic meters. Iron rollers durability 100. Fuel 0. External weaponry none. Sum studied the model, focusing on where the car connected to the overhead cable, instead of being permanently welded. Lost in thought, a cold mechanical voice echoed in his ears. Region announcement. Cable line number 886. Supplies and treasure chests have been distributed. Sumu evaluates the current situation and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Sumu scans regional chat for useful facts, ignoring panic and empty arguments while preserving a stable pool of future trading partners. Nighttime messages turn frantic as unknown creatures batter cable cars, and weaker survivors discover that thin glass offers almost no margin for error. At this point, Sumu reassesses the latest source-supported development, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. Finally done with the old real-world grind, survival mode sounds fair. 1 daily descent to loot then extract. Players quickly learn the cable cars are isolated from one another, so even nearby survivors not simply meet without planning the same descent point. Sumu skipped past the panic-stricken pleas and zeroed in on the calmer discussions. Does this game want us to fight each other? Regional chat reveals everyone received different starting tools, including knives, sickles, hoes, and entrenching gear, rather than standardized combat weapons. Maybe player versus player combat isn't the main focus. Some survivors initially assume the game will stay manageable if humans cooperate, But others warn that unseen monsters must be the real threat. If anyone kills someone, the victim should post the killer's name in chat before they die, right? Jun publicly proposes a landing team and volunteers to go first, using his unusually strong starting attributes to attract nervous survivors. Jun shares a strong physical stat sheet and claims his background makes him trustworthy, causing weaker survivors to rally around his plan. Sumu read through the flood of replies without typing a word, rapidly processing everything. The setup suggested player versus player conflict was not the primary challenge. Yet, if human betrayal was the only threat, this survival scenario would be far too simple. Yes, far too easy. Most people came from peaceful societies, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Even with weariness towards strangers, few would immediately resort to killing on sight, which meant other dangers had to exist. Monsters or something else entirely. Hostile AI enemies existed alongside other players. Those NPCs were weak in-game, but real-world equivalents could be deadly if ramped up. With that thought, Sumu typed a message into public chat. The system's warning reinforces that every taste sent can expose survivors to hostile creatures. Warnings about shapes moving in the jungle shift the channel's attention away from human conflict and towards the creatures hiding below the cable line. Sort of humanal looking, but definitely not human or any normal animal. Sumu evaluates cable car and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Messages volunteering to join Luo Lichen's group flooded the chat. Sumu searched for a while and said nothing more. He looked out the glass. A 100-meter drop lay to the jungle canopy below. The window only opened a narrow gap for ventilation. He couldn't lean out and could only observe through glass. Details on the ground were impossible to make out. He then looked forward and backward along the cable. Visibility stretched roughly 1 kilometer. Beyond that, thick gray fog blocked all sight. Sumu was observing his surroundings when another prompt echoed inside his mind. Distinct from the earlier system announcement. Soul compatibility detected. Talent awakening in progress. Talent awakening complete. Sumu evaluates talent and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. A flicker of excitement crossed Sumu's mind. A talent awakening. This must be his special advantage. 3 gilded border cards materialized before him and flipped over one by one, revealing 3 distinct options. Option 1. Information. Gain 1 random piece of intelligence daily. Option 2. Personal permanent 50% increase to strength. Option 3. Construction. Reduce crafting time for buildings and equipment by 10%. Could he take all 3? Sumu studied the choices. Every option held clear value. But take all was not an option. He needed to choose carefully. He ruled out option 3 first. Right now, he possessed 0 resources. What could he possibly craft? A 10% time reduction meant nothing with nothing to build. In typical crafting systems, early game projects didn't take long anyway. Another 3-choice talent selection appears, letting Sumu compare information, personal growth, and construction effects before locking in the strongest long-term advantage. Option 2 granted a permanent 50% strength boost. On paper, it looked fantastic. Doing the math, his base strength stood at 8. A 50% increase added 4 points for a total of 12. That would make him stronger. Yet, it wouldn't grant a decisive edge. Right now, he knew almost nothing of this world. What threats lurked nearby? How powerful were the monsters? Where were supplies located? What did extraction points look like? Everything was unknown. At minimum, 1 critical clue every day was an overwhelmingly powerful early game advantage. Its value wouldn't diminish. The chosen talent merges into Sumu, adding another permanent layer to a progression system that grants snooze options whenever he or his cable car levels. Inside Peacetown's small general store, Sumu prioritizes water, biscuits, instant food, and other compact supplies, instead of wasting carrying capacity. A silver-ranked treasure chest is located in the backyard of the police station, 27.32 kilometers away. The intelligence report becomes visible map coordinates, allowing Sumu to measure distance and plan around threats hidden beyond the surrounding fog. Though the gray mist still obscured his view, the markers displayed exact bearings and distances, like waypoints on a game map. Sumu rapidly analyzed the new information. Human settlements existed 20-plus kilometers ahead, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Traveling at the cable car's 5 km/h idle speed, Arrival would take just over 4 hours, a manageable time frame. 2 treasure chests waited. He had no reference for monster difficulty scaling. Yet, the explicit level 3 warning paired with his own level 1 status made it clear those creatures posed major danger and were not to be. He would secure the bronze chest first, then assess the threat level of the silver chest location, before deciding whether to risk attempting it. That was his plan. Sumu evaluates talent, cable car, and adjusts his next move, according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Did vehicle levels also count toward his talent picks? Sumu's attention sharpened. 3 new golden cards appeared. Option 1. Information. Unlock Monster Codex, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Observing mutated creatures grants detailed stat panels and automatically records them. Reduce resource cost for crafting equipment and buildings by 10%. Rule type ability. That must be the effect triggered by the luck icon. Sumu quickly eliminated option 3. Cutting resource consumption by 10% was useful yet palled compared to the other 2 choices. Detailed enemy stats would let him judge whether he could win fights and how to approach them with passive stat gains as he documented more creatures. It was a strong growth-oriented talent. Still, his attention locked onto the rule-based ability on option 2 from his familiarity with survival stories. He knew rule-based abilities were overpowered, absolute forces that defied ordinary logic, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Every single one of his attacks would home in on monster weak points. Even blind swings would land on critical vulnerabilities. He wouldn't need to locate weak points, time strikes, or even aim. The moment his attack connected, it would strike the most vulnerable spot. The benefit might feel subtle early on, yet it would grow increasingly broken as time went on. The Monster Codex granted detailed information upon visual observation. The wording more detailed implied basic stats were already visible. Without it, simple baseline stats would be enough to gauge whether a monster was too strong to engage. Learning exact weak point locations was secondary. Automatic targeting of weak points accomplished exactly that practical goal through a different mechanic. Sumu reached out and selected option 2. Selection confirmed. Presumably, the effect would manifest only when he faced monsters. Sumu made good use of the waiting time by reopening the regional chat channel. His talent had awakened through his soul rather than a standard system bind. That meant other people might awaken talents as well. He wanted to see what others were posting on the subject. These 4 hours gave him a chance to gather intelligence. From the collective chat, information pulled from hundreds of people would outpace what he could discover alone. The chat's message frequency had slowed noticeably. There was no constant flood of new posts. The whole channel had fallen into a strange lull. Luli Jun broke the silence. Anyone who hasn't joined the group should do so quickly. At this point, Sumu reassesses talent, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. At this point, Sumu reassesses talent, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk during this stage of the route. Other survivors begin revealing ordinary graded talents, including movement bonuses and a fireball spell, showing Sumu that talent awakening is not unique. Luli Jun argues that falling hunger makes delay dangerous, so he pushes his group to move before their physical condition deteriorates further. Sumu's read the exchange with a frown. Luli Jun's eagerness seemed excessive. Under normal circumstances, anyone who unlocked a powerful talent would keep it hidden. Either he was genuinely naive, or he had grand ambitions and intended to build influence in these early hours. Regardless of his motives, Luli Jun had inadvertently supplied Sumu with valuable clues. 4 key facts became clear. First, talent awakening was not exclusive to him. A portion of the population could trigger it. Second, judging by chat discussion, roughly 5% of people had awakened talents. Likely higher, as many would keep their secret like Sumu. Third, other people's talents carried letter grade rankings, such as D rank and E rank. His talents bore no rank marker at all. Fourth, his per-level dual selection mechanic could be compared against others' ranked talents. The 50% strength boost from his first choice option 2 corresponded to AD ranked talent. Other chat users reported AD ranked talent, granting 5% crafting time reduction. So 50% reduction option would likely rate C rank. His talent system operated on completely different rules. Everyone else received only 1 talent, while every level granted him 1 personal talent pick and 1 cable car talent pick. As he leveled up, he would keep accumulating more abilities. The gap between himself and ordinary survivors would keep widening. But Sumu didn't get carried away. First of all, this regional channel only had 1,000 people, and the highest ranked talent revealed so far was only grade D. Even if high-grade talents appeared at a rate of 1 in 10, 0, that would still leave 4 million people in possession of them. The stronger the talents these people possessed, the more terrifying the inherent dangers of this world would become. Otherwise, it wouldn't even qualify as a survival trial. Sumu pulled his thoughts back and continued to monitor the chat channel. Sumu realized Lu Lijun's planned team cannot land together immediately because the cable cars are spread across kilometers of the same line. He wanted to see whether Lu Lijun's operation could yield any valuable intelligence. But just as this thought crossed his mind, as soon as the notification popped up, the chat interface seemed to hit a pause button. Everyone froze. After a long moment, people finally snapped out of it. The channel erupted. Lu Lijun is dead. Didn't he have a great talent with 13 strength and a 50% boost? How long was he down there? Not even a minute. Are level 1 monsters this ferocious? The channel erupted. Sumu grew cautious too. A level 1 monster had instantly taken out a talent bearer with nearly 20 points of strength. He glanced once more at his target zone, the area housing a level 3 mutated creature. He would have to be much more cautious. What exactly happened? Where are the others who went down with Lu Lijun? Say something. Someone began tagging the players who had previously agreed to join the team. There was no response whatsoever. It had originally stood at 10 and now read 999. Only one person had died. What about the rest of Lu Lijun's party? Lu Lijun called so many people to team up, and he was the only one who jumped. He cursed a bunch of cowards, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. After Lu Lijun dies, angry survivors accuse his supposed teammates of using him as a scout, but the silent group never actually reached his landing point. Sumu read through the flood of comments and furrowed his brows slightly. He had always believed human nature was fundamentally self-serving. Under these circumstances, this kind of behavior was understandable. When facing the unknown, some were willing to step forward as pathfinders, while others held back to observe. It was the most rational choice. Something felt off, though. So many players had responded to the team-up call. The channel was filled with outrage. Yet every member of the group stayed quiet. That was abnormal. Unless a flash of insight struck Sumu, each cable car was spaced 10 meters apart. There were 1,000 players in this channel, which meant the line of cable cars stretched for 10 full kilometers. Moreover, the game offered no built-in team descent function. Unless two players happened to occupy adjacent carriages by sheer luck, there was no way for them to land in the exact same spot. Sumu refused to believe. It was merely because he had skipped breakfast. Even if that excuse held partial truth, it was hardly the main reason. Far more likely, he had set his sights a specific landing zone after coordinating privately with the others. He planned for everyone to converge at that location. The rest of the group had most likely not yet reached that position when news of Lu Lijun's death arrived. Naturally, none of them dared jump anymore. They hesitated, debated among themselves, and had no way to explain themselves amid the chaos, so they simply stayed silent. Is it possible that those grouped with Lu Lijun simply haven't reached his landing spot yet? Each cable car is positioned 10 meters apart, even though individual carriages are not huge. There are 1,000 of us. Those furthest back could be as far as 10 kilometers away. Lu Lijun jumped, but others may still several kilometers from that exact location and cannot land together. As Sumu's message appeared, the atmosphere of suspicion hanging over the channel eased a little. Holy hell, that makes sense. None of us thought of that. Giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. The cable cars aren't side by side. They move in a long line. Soon one player replied, "That's exactly it." Lu Lijun messaged us privately. At the cable car speed, it will take more than half an hour to get there. Several members explain they were still more than an hour away from Lu Lijun's chosen location when the death announcement appeared. Others confirmed they had not yet descended, proving the failed team plan came from spacing along the cable line rather than deliberate betrayal. Different survivors report seeing completely different terrain below, reinforcing that the 1,000 cable cars stretch across a huge distance instead of one shared area. The shadow of distrust that had loomed over the channel faded. Conversation returned to normal, shifting toward discussing monster threat levels and the necessity of forming parties as, This game really is deadly. Teaming up is a must. Towns hold abundant resources, but they will definitely have more monsters too. Hey, each cable car has an identification number. The channel begins organizing future teams by cable car identification numbers, so neighboring survivors can reach the same landing zone at roughly similar times. Right, the numbers go in sequence. Players in neighboring carriages could work together. Chat flowed freely in the channel as users brainstormed better ways to team up and deal with monsters. Sumu said nothing further. He had pointed out this truth not out of some noble sense of justice, quite the opposite. He considered himself fundamentally self-interested. His main motivation for sharing his observation was to prevent the channel from descending into mutual paranoia. Given the monster threat, unity against external dangers was the optimal scenario. If suspicion tore the community apart, people would have to watch out not only for monsters, but also for each other. Some degree of caution toward other players was reasonable. What he wanted to avoid was an environment where immediate hostility reigned, and no one could trust anyone. That would turn this nightmare difficulty survival scenario straight into hell mode. No one would willingly raise the difficulty level for themselves. A few simple sentences had restored a baseline of mutual trust. Why not do it? Beyond that, Sumu knew from reading survival novels that supplies could presumably be traded between players. He couldn't possibly gather every resource he needed on his own. Sooner or later, he would have to barter with others. The more players died, the fewer potential trading partners he would have, hindering his own development. Shaking off his thoughts, Sumu examined out the window. The cable car continued moving at a steady pace. Up ahead, a gap opened amid dense woodland. A cluster of blue-tiled houses lay below a typical southern-style village. Rising prominently above all other buildings at the village center stood a water tower. That was where Lulijun had jumped. The cable cars soon glided directly over the settlement. Sumu peered hard through the glass. Faint moving figures were visible down on the ground. Green figures instead of hiding within the woods. They roamed the village's open grounds. Easy to spot. They moved slightly faster than ordinary humans, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Encountering one alone would be dangerous, but several people working together ought to be able to handle it. Sumu shook his head. Still better not provoke them if avoidable. For the next 4+ hours, Sumu kept a close eye on the chat channel. Many more players died during the stretch. The player count in the top right corner dropped from 999 all the way to 921. Yet, a great deal of useful information accumulated. One player shared an observed stat panel they had glimpsed from above. Goblin level 1, Strength 18, Constitution 15, Agility 9, Spirit 5. Their strength neared 3 times that of an average human, and other attributes sat at roughly double baseline human levels. These creatures lived in groups. Fortunately, goblin packs nearby tended to be small. The basic starting tools provided by the system, axes, hoes, and similar implements, dealt substantial damage against them. Some teams had already successfully defeated goblins. Killing them dropped various everyday supplies. No particularly rare loot had been reported so far. Naturally, few players openly reported their goblin kills. It was entirely possible some concealed valuable drops. Players also reported scarce resources out in the wilderness. Most consumables found were wild fruits in thick forest zones. Lucky explorers occasionally located treasure chests, almost always gray-ranked. These mostly yielded basic supplies, such as kin food and bottled water. Of course, Sumu knew this information was incomplete. Some players might have found outstanding loot and chosen not to announce it. Even so, Sumu was satisfied with what he had learned. One conclusion was clear, for now. He could forget about pursuing the silver-ranked treasure chest. If level 1 goblins possessed such formidable stats and required multiple players to defeat, he stood no chance whatsoever against level 3 creatures. Sumu grabbed his backpack hanging inside the cable car and picked up his axe. Getting ready. Mountaineering backpack capacity for 20 kilograms of supplies. Fire axe. Armor piercing 10. Durability 100. Note: higher strength increases damage dealt. Holding the fire axe in his hand calmed his nerves a little. He then opened his system panel. Available descents remaining. 1 consume 1 descent to land. Sumu didn't immediately confirm. He pressed his face close to the glass and stared intently downwards. As the cable car advanced slowly, the view below grew clearer. It was a typical small-town layout with rows of low-rise buildings. A narrow main street ran through the center lined with storefronts. His target, the general store, sat unobtrusively halfway down that street. Viewed from high above, it would have been nearly impossible to pick out without foreknowledge of its location. Meanwhile, he scanned the streets for wandering green figures. None. At least within his line of sight, nothing moved. The whole town lay unnervingly quiet. His talent's intel stated, no immediate dangers in the vicinity. Resources can be safely collected for now. He had no choice but to trust its accuracy. The green coordinate drew closer. 50 meters, 30 meters, 10 meters, 0 meters now. Sumu pressed confirm. The cable car door slid open automatically. A black vortex materialized out of thin air, its edges shimmering dark purple, bottomless. Sumu steadied himself, gripped his fire axe tightly, and stepped forward into it. The transition through the vortex brought near. Instant blindness before his vision returned, axe raised and ready for combat. Sumu quickly adjusted to ambient light. Even though his intel claimed no nearby threats, he kept his guard fully up. Soon he realized he was inside a sparsely furnished, small general store. The space spanned barely more than 10 square meters, shelves resembling delivery. Storage racks held assorted snacks. He could survey the whole room at a glance. Nothing out of the ordinary presented itself. Sumu relaxed slightly. Brief relief over, he began searching the premises at once. In one corner, he spotted a meter-wide iron case glowing with bronze radiance. A bronze-ranked treasure chest. Sumu walked straight over. The chest was unlocked. He lifted the lid. The bronze chest gives Sumu a white Tier 2, bullet-resistant vest, adding 15 armor and sharply reducing damage from low-level mutated creatures. On his character model shown in the system panel, torso armor appeared. Detailed statistics displayed alongside it. Torso equipment takes 75% reduced damage from level 1 mutated creatures, 50% reduced damage from level 2 mutated creatures. Reduction decreases progressively against level 3 and higher foes. Provides no defensive benefit versus level 5 or above creatures. Note damage reduction applies only against ordinary mutated creatures. Effects are hauled against higher quality variants elites, bosses, etc. with further penalties scaling upward. Reading the clause about diminished effectiveness against high-quality creatures made Sumu frown. This was bad news, not merely because the armor performed poorly against elite-grade monsters. It signified that higher-quality variants of the same threat level possessed drastically greater combat power compared to ordinary specimens. Otherwise, the defensive penalty wouldn't be so severe. This rural-style general store mostly stocked small snacks, spicy strips, gift box, milk sets, and holiday-oriented goods. Few of those items suited long-term survival stockpiling. Thankfully, he located instant noodles and biscuits on one shelf. He stuffed them rapidly into his backpack. He also found a box of chocolate, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Several bottles of bottled water followed. He passed over spicy flavored snacks. Eating them would create extreme thirst and waste precious water. He wouldn't carry such items in the early game phase. Soon his backpack was filled. Passing the counter holding tobacco and alcohol products, he stuffed 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes into his trouser pockets. He slung the loaded backpack onto his back. It felt noticeably heavy. His current load stood at 12 kilograms. He checked his character sheet. His maximum carry weight was 40 kilograms, 80 gene. Movement speed would be heavily impaired once hitting 20 kilograms, and running would become impossible past 40 kilograms. This limit correlated with his strength stat of 8 points. 12 kilograms was still perfectly manageable. Once he had secured all supplies he wanted, Sumu brought up his system panel. A mini-map prompt had popped up the moment he landed, which he had ignored while looting. He examined it now. A translucent map unfolded before him, labeled Peacetown. Most of Peacetown remained shrouded in darkness. Only the general store where he stood was illuminated. What caught his eye were 2 evacuation icons in the top right and top left corners of the map. The meaning was clear. Reach those locations to teleport back to the cable car line. He chose the right-hand evacuation point. Without second thought, the top left marker sat on the side of the map containing the second coordinate with the silver-ranked treasure chest. Traveling there would force him near that zone. A level 3 monster resided there. He was in no condition to fight it. The idea of observing from a distance or waiting for an opportunity didn't cross his mind. He possessed his special advantage. If he played it safe and developed steadily, he would grow powerful over time. Taking things one step at a time was the wisest approach. He headed straight for the right side extraction point. Finished with planning, he gripped his axe and peered outside through a narrow gap he created by cracking the glass door open. A street stretched out before him. Surprisingly, no monsters roamed in sight. He proceeded outside carefully, nonetheless. He encountered 0 creatures along the way. This struck Sumu as odd. The area was far too quiet. Even out in the wilderness, monster encounters were fairly common. Still, no monsters was a good thing. He wanted no fights right now. He passed numerous residential buildings. Following typical survival game logic, he could search each house 1v1. Additional supplies or even treasure chests might lie inside. Sumu dared not enter them, though. Walking inside could mean stumbling straight into a mutated creature, which would be deadly. He kept moving forward without incident until he neared his destination. One strange detail. As he drew closer, faint sounds of combat drifted to his ears. They were muffled, as if originating far away. Sumu refused to investigating, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. He wondered if other players might have landed nearby. Regardless, he wouldn't go to check. He arrived at the designated evacuation site. It was a 4-story building, unusually tall for this small town, where most structures were blue-tiled houses, seldom exceeding 2 stories. He studied the building, then grew cautious. The extraction point is on the top floor, on the now partially revealed map. The evacuation teleport vortex was located on the very uppermost level. No alternative existed. He would have to enter and climb upward. He refocused on the building in front of him. Ground floor roll-up metal shutters stood open so he wouldn't have to make loud noise forcing entry. The ground floor space was large and empty, evidently intended for vehicle parking. After confirming no immediate threats, Sumu moved cautiously toward the stairwell. He reached the steps, glancing upward. He heard no sounds and spotted nothing abnormal. He began climbing. The stairwell grew dim as he ascended. There was a light switch on the wall, but Sumu dared not turn on the light. In the deep darkness, he could hear nothing but his own breathing. Fortunately, no danger had crossed his path so far. Yet, Sumu had barely had time to react at all. A tremendous force slammed into his chest, making his internal organs churn violently. Beneath this brutal blow, Sumu finally caught sight of the figure. In front of him, it was green and far shorter than he was. Crushed by the heavy strike, adrenaline surged through Sumu's veins. The creature also seemed drained after landing that hit, giving Sumu his window to strike back. To his surprise, no matter how recklessly he swung, every blow landed true on the target. Warm blood splattered across his face. An elderly goblin ambushes Sumu in the dark stairwell, but his weak point lock guides every desperate axe swing into a lethal target. At the sound of the system prompt, Sumu gasped for breath. His hands still trembled, but he forced himself to calm down. Only then could he see clearly. This was a hunched-over goblin. Its skin was wrinkled like dried bark, yet its muscles were knotted and powerful. Judging from the contours of its torso, this was a female goblin, aged, hideous, yet brimming with brute strength, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. After defeating the goblin, he spotted a wooden box on the ground. Sumu didn't reach for it right away. Instead, he scanned the stairwell thoroughly and stayed on guard. He waited a short while to confirm no other creatures lurked nearby before pressing a hand to his chest. The area still throbbed with pain. This had only been a level 1 goblin, and his secondary grade armor had reduced 75% of the incoming damage. Without that armor, that single blow would likely have defeated him. He was also thankful the creature had not aimed for his head or other vital parts. The outcome would have been catastrophic. He stuffed the chocolate into his pocket, picked up the water bottle, and drank several gulps. He then set Falsimal gently beside the stairs and prepared to keep climbing. Just then faint, high-pitched, babbling noises drifted from behind the second-floor door. The sound was grating to the ears. Sumu grew cautious. More monsters immediately. Sumu sprinted upward. He had to reach the rooftop and escape through the portal as fast as he could. He ran all the way to the 4th floor, and no pursuing footsteps echoed from below. Still, Sumu dared not relax. A sharp sense of dread washed over him. That same babbling sound emanated from within the room. There was no turning back. Sumu tightened his grip on his axe. He had no choice but to charge forward. He rushed ahead immediately, fully braced for combat. However, no attack came as he reached the 4th floor doorway. What he saw inside filled him with disbelief. Sumu clears the goblin pups room by room, gaining experience and loot, while taking advantage of the adults being absent from the nest. Goblin pups were crawling, rolling, and playing on the floor. A thick stench of blood hung heavy in the air throughout the room. Some of the pups gnawed on something. Sumu fought back nausea as he studied these goblin pups, none of which reached even his knees. Goblin pup level 1. Strength 4. Constitution 3. Agility 5. Spirit 1. Note: immature goblin combat power amounts to only 1/5 of an adult goblin's. So even among level 1 foes, there were vast differences. The larger ones halted their feeding and tilted their heads to stare at him, blood crusted at the corners of stis, the saliva dripping down their jaws. The smaller ones merely blinked in confusion and let out soft babbling cries. Sumu checked at the pups, then at the human remains scattered across the floor. He felt no trace of mercy. He tightened his hold on his axe and stepped into the room. Sumu tests his weak point talent on the goblin pups and confirms even careless swings and thrown axes are redirected into critical hits. Now he could put it to the test. Sumu walked toward the nearest pup. Sumu raised his axe and swung it diagonally, without aiming for any specific body part. Yet, the instant the axe blade was about to land, Sumu grew cautious and moved on to the next target. This time, he deliberately aimed for its leg again. That guiding force kicked in right before impact, steering the axe directly into the creature's skull. Another death. Sumu's expression sharpened. He advanced on the third pup. He swung freely, and every strike landed with a wet meat-cutting thud, each striking the head. Whether the pups ran, crawled, or tried to fight back, their heads somehow ended up aligned with his axes, swing whenever they fell within attack range. Sumu even tried a horizontal sweep. Such a wide-airing strike should have made precise weak-point hits nearly impossible. Instead, goblin pups had half their heads sliced off simultaneously. All hits landed perfectly. Rule-based abilities truly defied common sense. Only one pup remained. Instead of closing in, Sumu stood 2 meters away and hefted his fire axe. The axe spun through the air along a somewhat erratic trajectory, veering off course, but at that exact moment, the goblin pup lifted its head and took one step forward. That single step brought its head directly into the axe's path. Splat. Another headshot kill. It had even predicted the target's movement. Sumu was shocked by how unreasonably powerful this rule-based effect was. Pushing down his astonishment, he walked over to retrieve his axe. His discomfort faded further when he noticed a wooden box beside every corpse and heard the constant stream of system sum notifications ringing in his mind. Defeated level 1 goblin pup experience +1. Defeated level 1 goblin pup experience +1. 13 goblin pups had occupied this room. 13 experience points were his. The first few yielded ordinary survival supplies, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Biscuits, chocolate, mineral water, and bread. When he opened the third box, his movements paused. Received Universal Tier 2 Cable Car Upgrade Blueprint. A yellowed blueprint displaying cable car structural diagrams, annotated with various specifications and material requirements. Sumu leaned in to read its details. Universal Tier 2 Cable Car Upgrade Blueprint. Required materials: variable quantity of iron ingots, variable quantity of high-strength glass essence. Sumu grew cautious. No exact numbers were given for the required materials. Perhaps the exact figures would only appear once he was interacting with the cable car itself. He shook the thought aside and kept opening boxes. The fifth box received iron ingot X1, a palm-sized heavy metal block weighing roughly 1 kilogram. Note: material for cable car upgrades. Great find. Sumu's attention sharpened. Iron ingots were needed for the cable car upgrade. Even without knowing the exact amount required, stockpiling them could only help. The seventh box received high-strength glass essence ×1, a billiard ball-sized transparent block also weighing around 1 kilogram. Another upgrade material. Sumu grew more excited and hastened to open the rest. Biscuits, water, chocolate, iron ingots, glass essence. Sumu tallied his new loot. Iron ingots ×4, high-strength glass essence X3. He also had a stockpile of biscuits, mineral water, and chocolate, enough to sustain him for several days. Plus the most valuable item of all, the upgrade blueprint. His backpack was overflowing. He wrapped all his newly acquired supplies inside the blanket and set the bundle down by the 4th floor doorway. He was not heading for the extraction point just yet. Before climbing upstairs, he had heard those babbling noises coming from lower floors. Since no adult monsters had come after him this whole time, the lower floors were likely filled with more goblin pups. Only pups, no adult goblins. The 3rd floor door also hung slightly ajar. He pushed it open. The scene inside mirrored the 4th floor. Over a dozen goblin pups, playing, biting, and crawling about. 3 minutes later, Green blood stained the floor. Experience +1. Experience +1. Experience +1. Received high-strength glass essence ×1 received iron ingot ×1 received fuel 1 liters. He gathered the loot rapidly and wrapped it in another bedsheet. Then he descended further. Second floor. The same scene repeated. Experience +1. Experience +1. Experience +1 received. High-strength glass essence ×1 received. Iron ingot ×1 received fuel 1 liters. Once he finished collecting everything, Sumu checked his experience value. Current experience 54 out of 100. He needed another 46 experience points to reach level 2. That was not his main concern. Far more important were his gains from clearing the building. Experience 54 out of 100. Food and water sufficient for roughly half a month, and large quantities of upgrade materials. Still, Sumu dared not linger. This place was clearly a monster nest. He didn't know why only one elderly goblin had guarded the building. Yet every extra minute spent here raised his risk. He bundled all his supplies and bed sheets, hefted the heavy packs, and climbed back upward. By the time he reached the third-floor landing, his total load weighed 38 kilograms. Walking grew difficult, and he gasped for breath with every step he took. Fortunately, the extraction portal was only a short distance away on the fourth-floor rooftop. Carrying 3 large bundles plus his backpack, Sumu dragged himself upward step by step. When he finally reached the rooftop, sweat streamed down his face and he panted heavily. He set down his bundles, bent over with hands on his knees, and caught his breath. Then, the sounds of distant combat grew far louder. From down below, the noise had been muffled by walls. Up on the open rooftop, the racket boomed without obstruction. Clang, bang, boom, interwoven with monster roars and pain screams. Sumu turned toward the source of the noise, his look genuinely surprised. 1 kilometer away lay the police station situated beside an open-air parking lot. A brutal melee unfolded there. At least 100 green-skinned figures, adult goblins had formed a circle and swarmed several huge creatures trapped in their midst. Those towering creatures were minotaurs. Sumu had never laid eyes on such beings before. They stood twice as tall as ordinary humans, covered in brown or black fur, with curved, sharp horns sprouting from their heads. Each wielded massive stone or wooden hammers. 7 or 8 minotaurs in total were surrounded by over 100 goblins. Yet they held their ground easily. The largest minotaur at the center stood 3 times the height of a normal human. Its jet black fur jutted out like steel needles. Every charge sent 4 or 5 goblins flying. A single sweep of its giant hammer cleared large swathes of foes. Goblin clubs bounced harmlessly off its thick hide, not even scratching its skin. 20-odd goblin corpses littered the ground, their green blood pooling into small streams. Still, the goblins charged forward fearlessly. Sumu studied in awe. All the adult goblins had gone off to wage war against the minotaurs. Monsters fought amongst themselves, too. Sumu filed this critical piece of intelligence away in his mind. He promptly refocused his attention and prepared to step in the extraction vortex. He dragged his 3 bundled parcels forward immediately. But right before he stepped into the vortex, his gaze drifted toward a rooftop corner. He froze where he stood. Near the rooftop water tank sat a chest. Sumu sprinted over at it once, knelt down, and placed both hands on the silver chest. It had no lock, the lid lifted easily. 3 items rested inside. Sumu's attention sharpened. First lay an all-black firearm. Its rugged frame gleamed with cold metallic luster. Anti-slip grooves lined the grip. Its barrel was slightly longer than a standard pistol, with clearly defined front and rear sights. It exuded raw, brutal craftsmanship. Beside the gun rested a thumb-sized glass orb. No, it was no ordinary glass orb. Half of its interior blazed with searing crimson, as if an eternal flame burned within. The other half swirled with frosty white, wispy cold vapors, curling outward. 2 opposing forces were sealed inside the transparent sphere. The final item was a potion contained within a thin test tube-sized vial filled with bright blue liquid that shimmered faintly in the sunset light. Sumu didn't stop to examine them closely. This was a monster nest, and every second counted. The silver chest gives Sumu a green M500 revolver, a dual fire and ice cotton seed, and a permanent strength potion. Sumu drinks the one-use strength potion, raising his strength sharply, and more than doubling how much scavenged weight he can comfortably carry. He lifted his 3 heavy she-trapped bundles again, slung them over his shoulders, and strode toward the extraction portal. The purple-black vortex spun silently in the center of the rooftop. As soon as he crossed its threshold, a 10-second countdown appeared before his eyes. When the countdown hit 0, a familiar sense of weightlessness washed over him. Almost instantly, Sumu brought up his eyes, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. He was back inside his cramped 1 square meter. Space the cable car, familiar glass panels, familiar walls, his axe hanging on its hook, his backpack in its place. The already tiny cabin was instantly stuffed full. The 3 she-trapped bundles piled on the floor occupied most of the available space. Sumu could only sit curled atop the bundles, barely able to turn his body. Still, he paid little mind to his cramped surroundings. Time to tally his spoils. Sumu untied each sheet-wrapped bundle in turn. Supplies spilled out onto the floor, forming a sizable mount. Among the goblin drops, Sumu finds the universal Tier 2 cable car blueprint, plus iron and glass materials needed to upgrade his only safe shelter. Chocolate X times 24 bars enough for many days. Instant noodles times 22 packs multiple flavors. Mineral water X times 34 bottles 500 ml each. Vacuum-packed bread times 32 portions long. Shelf life. Cigarettes times 3 unopened packs soft junga. If rationed carefully, these supplies could sustain him for more than 10 days. There was just one problem. Space was severely limited. Barely any floor space remained in the 1 square meter cabin. He sat cross-legged on top of the bundles, his back pressed tight against the glass wall. He needed to upgrade the cable car as soon as possible. Sumu set aside all upgrade-related materials in one spot and stacked his survival supplies neatly in the corner. Once that task was finished, he took out the 3 items he had looted from the silver treasure chest. First, the firearm M500 revolver, green grade level 3, type ranged weapon base firepower 22. Magazine capacity 5 rounds, current round 7, including loaded rounds, rate of fire for single, approximate 0 point. He lacked a clear frame of reference for what firepower represented, judging from his experiences fighting with the axe. However, the mechanics resembled real-world logic. Even goblins with high constitution fell to well-placed axe strikes, especially critical hits to weak points. Sumu equipped the revolver to see whether it would display detailed stats, just like his armor had. As he equipped the weapon, a model of his character appeared on his system panel. The revolver now held in its right hand with detailed statistics displayed beside it. Held weapon level 3 green, against level 4 elite mutated creatures. Damage dealt reduced by 25%. Against level 5 elite mutated creatures. Damage dealt reduced by 50%, with further reduction for higher level foes. Against level 1 elite mutated creatures. Damage dealt increased by 50%. Against level 2 elite mutated creatures. Damage dealt increased by 25%. Note: this is a green-grade elite tier equipment. It grants bonus damage against foes of lower quality, and its effectiveness drops against higher-level targets. After reading these attributes and comparing Machine with the stats of his previously received armor, Sumu roughly assessed the general effects of this gear. Equipment had grades and tiers. Against monsters below level 3 or below elite rank, the pistol dealt bonus damage. Naturally, there could also be scenarios where a monster was above level 3, yet not elite rank. There must be some underlying calculation for these cases, though he didn't understand it yet. Even so, there was no denying how powerful this gun was. At least for now, it was more than sufficient. The only downside was that he only had 7 bullets, and no way to obtain more. He would have to check the regional chat later for any relevant clues. After a moment of thought, Sumu set the pistol aside and picked up the glass bead seed of dual fire and ice cotton green type, special plant seed effect. Mature cotton fibers can be crafted into a constant temperature garment. Constant temperature garment effect. Upon being worn, it adapts to extreme temperatures ranging from -15 degrees Celsius to +40 degrees Celsius. It also grants minor physical damage resistance. Growth cycle 15 days growth requirements. Must be planted in at least 1 cubic meter of soil. Requires watering once per day and adequate sunlight. Note: this plant is environmentally sensitive. Improper care may cause it to wither and die. Sumu grew cautious slightly as he studied the description. Clothing that resisted extreme temperatures. Its practical value was undeniable. How was he supposed to plant it? Daily watering and sufficient sunlight were manageable. The cable car was lined with glass panels, so sunlight was abundant during the day. He could use mineral water for watering. The real trouble was the soil. He glanced around his cable car. Not only did he lack 1 cubic meter of soil, he didn't even have a flower pot. 1 cubic meter of soil was extremely heavy. Sumu shook his head and carefully stowed the seed away. It was useless for the time being, but worth keeping. He would consider planting it only after the cable car was upgraded with more interior space and ample resources. Consumable effect permanently increases strength by 10 points upon consumption. Note, only effective on the first use per person. Repeated consumption yields no benefit. Permanent plus 10 strength. Sumu's attention sharpened. Over the course of this day, he had deeply learned how important strength was. Carrying capacity, attack power, and close combat dominance all depended on this stat. This potion would raise it directly by 10. Immediately, Sumu unscrewed the cap and drank the potion in one gulp. The liquid felt cool on his throat before spreading rapidly throughout his body. A warm sensation rose from his abdomen and flowed to every limb. His muscles tensed and faint creaking sounds came from his bones, as if something inside him was growing and strengthening. The sensation lasted roughly 5 seconds, then faded away. Sumu clenched his fists. He could clearly feel that he had grown physically stronger. Earlier, hauling 3 bundles up had left him gasping for breath. A load of 38 kilograms had been nearly his limit. Now he reached down and grabbed one of the sheet-wrapped bundles, which held over 10 bottles of mineral water, plus food easily more than 10 kilograms, that he lifted it effortlessly. While still somewhat taxing, it felt far less strenuous than before. 18 strength. Sumu brought up his personal status panel, where his stats had updated. Name Sumu Level 1. Race Human Hunger 65 Strength 18 Constitution 7. Spirit 16 Strength had jumped from 8 to 18. His maximum carrying capacity was now 90 kilograms more than doubled. Sumu accepted the point in satisfaction. At 18 strength, his physical power matched that of adult goblins. Combined with his innate talent that let every attack target monster weak points, his odds in melee combat had improved greatly. Still, this was no time for overconfidence. He looked out the window. He needed to upgrade his cable car as soon as possible. Once inside the cable car, the blueprint's data had changed. The formerly vague values were now clear, presenting 4 upgrade paths. Path 1, defensive consumes 10 iron ingots. After upgrade, cable car armor rises to 40. Interior space expands to 4 cubic meters, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Maximum load-bearing capacity reaches 4 tons. Path 2 balanced. Consumes 7 iron ingots. 3 high-strength glass essence after upgrade. Cable car armor rises to 30. Interior space expands to 4 cubic meters. Maximum load-bearing capacity reaches 4 tons. Path 3 observation consumes 2 iron ingots. 8 high-strength glass essence. After upgrade, cable car armor rises to 20. Interior space expands to 4 cubic meters. Maximum load-bearing capacity reaches 4 tons. Gains the trait panoramic vision. Greatly increased glass surface area for wider observation range. Path 4 special consumes 7 iron ingots, 3 high-strength glass essence, 1 seed of dual fire and ice cotton. After upgrade, cable car armor rises to 20. Interior space expands to 4 cubic meters. Sumu chooses the special Tier 2 upgrade path, sacrificing the rare cotton seed to gain more space, stronger armor, and automatic temperature control. Mitigates non-extreme weather and greatly reduces heat and cold-related environmental penalties. Sumu made his choice almost instantly and selected Path 4. Armor would still sit at a reasonable threshold. He couldn't plant the dual fire and ice cotton seed anyway. Rather than letting the seed sit unused, he would invest it in the upgrade. Moreover, the warm in winter, cool in summer trait was enormously practical. Selection confirmed. Cable car upgrade initiated. By the time the upgrade finished, night would have fully fallen. It was inconvenient. Yet he knew construction tasks always required time. He was excited about the talent choice awaiting him after the upgrade. But 2 hours was not unreasonably long. On the right side's wall of the cable car, where nothing had been before, a small fuel filling port had appeared. Sumu unscrewed its cap and slowly poured in fuel. System notifications popped up. Fuel detected. Current fuel reserve 3 liters. Cable car power system activated. Available operations. Accelerate decelerate. Current maximum speed 20 kilometers per hour. Traveling at 20 kilometers per hour top speed. A full tank would last 15 consecutive hours. Yet another question occupied his thoughts. If he accelerated, would he crash into the cable car ahead? Through the glass, he saw another cable car hanging 10 meters ahead on the same cable line, moving at exactly the same speed as his own. Unless some rule of this world prevented collisions between cable cars, Sumu considered it but chose not to test recklessly. The acceleration function must exist for a reason, perhaps for emergency escapes. He would verify how it works some other time. He carefully stored the remaining 3 liters of fuel. Fuel seemed even more precious than food right now, so he would conserve it whenever possible. Having finished these tasks, Sumu sat back down among his bundles and checked the regional chat. 5 hours had passed since he had arrived in this world. The channel headcount counter had dropped from 0 to 93. 97 people were dead. The mortality rate was nearly 10%, and this was only the first day. Most people had not even attempted a descent yet. Sumu scrolled through chat messages, searching for useful information. The tone of the channel had shifted drastically since daytime. Many players were growing hungry and spammed the feed begging for supplies. Sumu evaluates water and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Could any high-level player spare some food, prompting Sumu to reassess food before choosing his next move? Even half a loaf of bread would help. From what he had observed, anyone who had gone out to explore had at least gathered some basic supplies. It was nearly 6:00 and daylight was fading fast. Attempting a descent now would mean navigating complete darkness. The survival rules had explicitly warned how lethal nights were. These people had not dared to try exploring in daylight, and now they expected handouts from others. Sumu shook his head and kept scrolling. He was no hero. Supplies were scarce, and he couldn't afford to give away what he had. In this survival game, misplaced kindness often led to death. Amid the begging messages, there were genuine trade offers, selling 5 wild berries for 1 bottle of water, or 1 food ration. Fresh-picked berries trade for 1 pack of biscuits. Sumu had no need for wild berries. His food stockpile was solid, and he saw no reason to trade rations for fruit. Other players were trading iron ingots and glass essences. 1 iron ingot for 5 bottles of mineral water, or 5 food rations. 1 high-strength glass essence for 6 food rations. Firm price. Sumu grew cautious. 5 food rations for 1 iron ingot. In that sense, the asking price was not entirely unreasonable. Still, he checked his inventory. Mineral water 34 bottles. Instant noodles 22 packs. Bread 32 portions. Chocolate bars 24. Cigarettes 3 packs. His supplies would sustain him for roughly 10 days. He already possessed decent amounts of those crafting materials. Who knew what resources Tier 3 upgrades would demand? If he traded away food now, future purchases would become far harder. Furthermore, there was no guarantee his next descent would be as fruitful. He might land right in the middle of monster territory, where simply surviving would count as victory, never mind looting. After weighing the options, Sumu decided against trading for now. He would only part with food in exchange for something truly valuable. Messages flew by rapidly, purchase requests, sales, complaints, cries of despair. None caught his eye. As night deepens, the temperature collapses, and the cold becomes lethal for survivors who failed to collect blankets or upgrade their cable cars. They were likely received only by killing monsters or opening treasure chests. Those strong enough to defeat monsters already had food and had no need to trade. Those lucky enough to get blueprints from chests would likely hold on to them, waiting for better offers. There was nothing Sumu could do to force a deal. He kept reading for a while longer, still finding nothing of interest. Daylight faded further just before the sun vanished completely. One post seized his attention. The strength breakthrough talisman becomes essential, because experience alone cannot raise Sumu to level 2. The item also biases his new attributes towards strength. 1 blueprint counts as 10 rations. Sumu's gaze locked onto the message. He opened the post's details, and the talisman's stats appeared before him. The strength breakthrough talisman can only be used after Sumu fills his level 1 experience bar, and it pushes the resulting attribute growth towards strength. He had assumed leveling would happen automatically once experience filled the bar. Clearly, the rules were more complicated. None of the monster drop boxes he had opened had contained anything like this talisman. Its drop rate must be extremely low. Not only was it required for leveling, it also controlled attribute growth direction. Without it, stat points upon leveling would be assigned randomly. He might get lucky, or he might waste levels on useless attributes. With the talisman, he could guarantee strength-focused growth. Sumu checked at his panel. 54 out of 100 experience. Sumu sent her a private message. Private Sumu. Hello. At this point, Sumu reassesses breakthrough talisman, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. 20 rations is far too steep for this early stage. He could afford the asking price. But haggling made sense. Sumu evaluates blueprints and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. One blueprint counts as 10 rations, prompting Sumu to reassess blueprints before choosing his next move. Warm, keeping goods valued at 3 rations each. Judging by daytime temperatures, the climate resembled early autumn. Nights would cool down, but should not be frigid. Warming gear ought to be low value right now. Yet, she was eager to acquire them in exchange for such a rare talisman. She must know something he didn't. Food was the most critical resource at this stage. Sumu probed further. Sumu evaluates warmth supplies, water, and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk of available resources and the rules already revealed by the system. 3 warmth items equal 9 rations, prompting Sumu to reassess warmth supplies, water before choosing his next move. Food is incredibly valuable right now. Several seconds of silence passed. Lin Yu probes whether Sumu is already close to leveling, but he hides his real progress and claims the talisman is only a precaution. Sumu evaluates food and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Sumus read the reply without feeling pleased. Something felt off. Why would she accept such a poor value trade when food was so precious? Unless she knew tonight would bring uncommonly severe cold and desperately needed warmth supplies. He wouldn't press her for that insider knowledge. She would never tell him anyway. Should he complete the trade? His eyes fell on the 3 bed sheets he had salvaged from the goblin lair. They were stained with green monster blood and rire of foul odors. He had wanted to discard them, but the cable car windows were too small to throw them out. These sheets were useless to him. Food mattered much more. He wouldn't give up extra food. After a brief hesitation, he typed again. Sumu refuses to add another full food portion, and Lin Yu finally accepts the reduced offer once he adds only half a bread ration. Sumu split 1 bread portion into 2 halves. He opened the trade interface and placed 1 bottle of mineral water, 1.5 bread portions, plus the 3 rolled-up smelly sheets onto his side of the window. It was palm-sized, marked with intricate cinnabar patterns that shimmered faintly. Tier 1 strength type, breakthrough talisman white type, consumable effect. Use when level 1 experience reaches 100 out of 100 to advance to level 2. Forces newly assigned attribute points to favor strength-oriented growth. Sumu carefully stored the talisman away. His experience value now stood at 54 to 100, needing another 46 points. While Sumu was quietly pleased with himself, his private exchange interface suddenly blew up. Sumu and Lin Yu bargain over warm bedding, with each side protecting information while trying to exploit the coming cold. Sumu keeps the private exchange with Lin Yu strictly transactional, revealing as little as possible while testing what resources she actually values. He could picture the girl on the other end, most likely holding her nose. But there was no way he could answer that question. What truly troubled him was the risk of drawing unwanted attention. No matter how frantically she messaged him, he refused to reply. Meanwhile, inside another cable car, a young girl with long flowing hair studied the 3 bed sheets that had just materialized in front. Before a smile could form on her face, a suffocating stench washed over her, nearly making her pass out. The smell, a foul mixture of blood, urine, sweat, and some indefinable rot. After hours sealed away, it burst forth in full force. Ugh. Lin Yu clamped a hand over her mouth, fighting back nausea as she kicked the 3 bed sheets into the corner. After taking several deep breaths, Lin Yu calmed down. She took another look at the 3 bed sheets. Terrible smell aside, they were genuine quilts. Most importantly, she glanced out the window at the falling dusk and felt the chill growing stronger in the air. Pinching her nose, Lin Yu picked up the bed sheets with 2 fingers, trying her best not to touch them with her skin. Lin Yu decides the foul-smelling quilts are still worth keeping because we'll let her resell them at a much higher price. She carefully folded them and set them in the corner of the cable car. That guy, Sumu, thought he had gotten a better deal. Once the temperature drops below 0 tonight, he'll be begging for help. Sumu knew nothing of these thoughts. After closing the private exchange window, he kept browsing the regional chat. As daylight faded, the mood in the channel grew increasingly restless. Messages begging for food and water scrolled non-stop. Some people tried to trade materials, like iron ingots and glass essences. Yet, few were willing to take them. These items were useless scrap. After a moment's hesitation, he decided against trading. He wouldn't trade away anything except blueprints and special items for the time being. As for those who dared not even attempt their first landing, Sumu shook his head. He was no saint, and he had no obligation to save them. Scrolling further, he noticed something. The truly capable survivors who could slay monsters hardly spoke in the channel. No one mentioned specific loot, chest locations, or monster weaknesses. That was the mindset of real survivors. Sumu pulled his gaze away, about to close the channel when a cold shiver ran over him. He looked instinctively out the window. Night had fallen completely, but this was no ordinary night. Outside lay thick, absolute darkness with not a trace of moonlight. The gray fog had grown denser after dark, swallowing the whole world until nothing could be seen at arm's length. Chills seeped in through gaps in the glass. Sumu checked at the system display, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Current outside cable car temperature, 8 degrees Celsius. 8 degrees. He remembered it had been well over 20 degrees during the day. Sumu pulled his clothes tighter and narrowed the window gaps to a minimum. It made no difference. This was not ordinary cold. It was a bone-piercing, gloomy chill, as if something lurked and washed from within the fog. The regional chat erupted. He cursed. It's freezing. Does anyone know what's wrong with this weather? Just then, a new post popped up. Lin Yu selling warmth supplies. Free cotton quilts. Excellent heat retention. 10 portions of food or 1 blueprint. No other trades. No haggling. Sumu raised an eyebrow. 10 portions each. He had traded 3 warmth supplies for 9 portions of food, plus a bottle of water and 2 loaves of bread to get the talisman. She had more than doubled her profit in one flip. Sumu read her post and looked out at the darkening, frigid world. She must have known how cold tonight would turn out. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specifically asked about warmth supplies during their trade, nor timed her sale for exactly this moment. If her talent was merely weather sensing, how had she received that tier 1 strength type breakthrough talisman? He had defeated dozens of goblin cubs without a single talisman dropping. These items had an extremely low drop rate. Sumu considers whether Lin Yu obtained rare information through a talent, powerful teammates, or unusual luck, then stops speculating without evidence. Sumu shook his head and dismissed the speculation. Guessing would get him nowhere. No one would reveal such information to others, just as he would never expose his own talent. One thing was clear, though. Lin Yu was no ordinary person. Smart, well-informed, and bold enough to act. He would have to stay cautious when dealing with her in the future. As for holding a grudge, Sumu felt none. Trading worked on mutual consent. He had gotten what he needed, and she profited off an information gap. If anything, he owed her a little thanks. As for trying to get more warmth supplies right now, Sumu checked at his upgrade progress bar. Cable car upgrade progress, 87% almost done, prompting Sumu to reassess cable car before choosing his next move. He just needed to hold on a little longer. Outside, the temperature kept dropping. 8 degrees Celsius, 6 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Celsius, curled among his piles of supplies. Sumu trembled all over. His hands and feet had turned purple from the cold, and his breath formed thin frost on the window panes in the channel. Sumu evaluates goblins and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Hundreds of replies flooded Lin Yu's sales post, but she stood firm. 10 portions of food or 1 blueprint. No other trades, no haggling. People offered iron ingots and glass essences. She ignored them. Others played on her sympathy, begging for mercy as they neared freezing point. Still no reply. Observing this, Sumu felt a flicker of admiration for her. Ruthless and decisive, soft-hearted people didn't survive long in this world. The cold intensified thankfully. The outside temperature stabilized at 4 degrees Celsius. It was bitterly cold. The Tier 2 upgrade finishes just as the cold becomes dangerous, transforming the cramped carriage into a warmer, tougher cabin with much better protection. The thin sheet metal walls thickened into solid, sturdy plating. The windows grew thicker and far tougher, nearly doubling in thickness. The cabin took on a square shape with red and white paint, covering the rusted old metal. Warmth surged in from every direction, chasing away Sumu's cold in an instant. He read the system notification. Cable car upgraded to level 2. Current armor 40. Current interior space for cubic meters. Maximum load capacity for tons. Gain trait warm in winter. Cool in summer. Cabin temperature automatically adjusts to a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius. to 25 degrees Celsius for humans, resists external temperatures from 15 degrees Celsius up to 40 degrees Celsius. Comfort, unprecedented comfort. Sumu exhaled deeply and stretched his stiff limbs. Then the familiar system tone sounded again. At this point, Sumu reassesses talent. Cable car, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan, without exposing unnecessary risk. 3 golden cards floated before his eyes. To his surprise, the flame icon appeared once more on the second card labeled Luck. Another luck-related option. Sumu's attention sharpened as he read the 3 choices. Option 1. Information type. Does not work against targets with shielding type talents. May stockpile up to 10 total uses. Option 2. Personal type. When crafting or building equipment, there is a 1% chance for random qualitative transformation. What great luck! Another rule-based ability had appeared. Sumu's gaze locked onto option 2 at once. His previous talent, all attacks strike monster weak points, had already shown him how overpowered rule-based abilities could be. Guaranteed critical hits with every swing, even thrown strikes predicting enemy movements. If the description held true, 1 swing of his blade became 2. 1 gunshot became 2. Would that bonus attack also benefit from strike weak points? If so, Sumu drew a sharp breath, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. His combat output would double or even rise higher. As for option 1 and option 3, information-type skills were useful. Yet, the 3 use per day restriction was heavy. Against monsters, it only granted extra stat details, far less practical than guaranteed weak point strikes. Option 3's 1% chance for qualitative transformation was pure gambling. Amazing when it triggered, but far too unreliable. Immediately, Sumu reached out and selected option 2. Selection successful. The golden card dissolved into specks of light that flowed into his body. Just like last time, he felt no physical sensation. He threw a punch toward empty air. Nothing happened. Evidently, the extra attack only activated when hitting an actual target. Sumu lowered his hand and checked the view outside. The fog swirled and darkness reigned. Inside his cable car, however, it was warm as spring. Out in the channel, people still shivered, wailing, begging, and cursing. Someone had already traded a blueprint to buy one of Lin Yu's quilts. Sumu checked briefly, then looked away. He peered out at the roaring fog. Something large seemed to shift slowly within the mist. Sumu took one look and paid at it no further mind. He couldn't hope to deal with a creature of that scale. Turning away from the public chat, Sumu forced himself to sleep. He needed rest and stamina to search for supplies tomorrow. Exhausted from constant tension and a full day of scavenging, he drifted off quickly. In his sleep, Sumu heard what sounded like raindrops tapping against the windows. At first he ignored it, assuming it was merely rain, but the rain grew louder and denser. Countless impacts hammering against the glass. Sumu's eyes fluttered open. One glance jolted him fully awake. He sat bolt upright. That was no rain. Something was slamming violently against his cable car. Darkness and fog obscured its exact form. He could only make out silhouettes of fist-sized creatures. He checked his cable car armor status. Current armor 4040. Durability 99%. No damage at all. The fist-sized creatures struck the windows without leaving so much as a scratch. Sumu breathed a sigh of relief. He recalled the earlier warning. Nights were extremely dangerous. Yet this danger seemed less terrifying than he had imagined. Then a thought struck him. His was a level 2 cable car with 40 armor points. What about people still stuck at level 1? Their thin metal and glass only had 10 armor points. Could they withstand this constant pounding? Su brought up the regional chat. Sure enough, it was in chaos, prompting Sumu to reassess cable car before choosing his next move. Does anyone know how to fight them? Giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Weaker survivors report dense and cracking windows during the night attack, confirming their level 1 cable cars cannot absorb the punishment as easily as Sumu's. Sumu evaluates acts and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Sumu scanned the messages and checked the survivor count in the corner. It was roughly 2:0 in the morning. The number had dropped from 93 before bedtime to 812. Nearly 100 people dead in just a few hours. Some might have perished from cold, some from monster attacks, and others might have chosen to descend in desperation. There's no way to keep living like this, cold and dangerous. He felt safe only because he had upgraded to level 2. Those trapped in level 1 Cable cars fought for their lives right now. The topmost flickering contact was Lin Yu, with several unread messages. He had gone through all messages before sleeping clearly. She had messaged him again. Even after her earlier anger, he opened the thread. Lin Yu repeatedly messages Sumu after the nighttime attacks begin, eventually leaving a clear request for a new trade once he wakes. The monsters have begun ramming cable cars at roughly 1-0. He typed his reply, "Private chat, Sumu." "What is it?" She replied almost instantly. "Private chat." Li Nu finally awake. "Private chat, Sumu. Get to the point." How did she suspect he had fuel? Prompting Sumu to reassess fuel before choosing his next move. Then he realized she was probably probing, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Fuel was in high demand across the channel, yet almost nobody offered it for sale. At this point, Sumu reassesses food, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. Instant noodles, bread, bottled water, chocolate, more than enough to sustain him for over 10 days. There was a short pause on her end. She was most likely recalling how he had previously claimed to lack food. Sumu trades only for blueprints and permanent utility, valuing recipes that compound over time more than temporary food he already possesses. Judging by how shrewd she was, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. She must have gotten quite a few blueprints out of this. Several seconds passed, and another message popped up. After what happened with the warm-keeping supplies, Sumu suspected Lin Yu had access to special sources of information. Her urgent push to gather fuel had to mean something. What else would it be for? Monsters are attacking the cable cars out there. Fuel activates manual cable car acceleration, giving Sumu an emergency escape option that he preserves instead of wasting during routine travel. Thinking it over, it made perfect sense. Burn fuel to speed away from this monster-infested zone and shake off the attacks. He just had not taken any damage himself, so the idea had never crossed his mind. Sumu evaluates fuel, cable car, and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Had people been talking about that in the channel, he searched the chat history for the keyword level 2, and sure enough, there were multiple threads. Whoa, that must be an upgrade, prompting Sumu to reassess cable car before choosing his next move. Someone already pulled that off this fast. Big shot. Carry us. His level 2 cable car had doubled in interior space and undergone a full visual transformation. There was no hiding it. Lin Shu shows Sumu several blueprints, and he evaluates which recipes create permanent value before committing fuel to the exchange. Roller Blueprint White for crafting standard cable car rollers. The bear trap recipe gives Sumu a cheap, external defense that can restrain small mutated creatures while his cable car keeps moving through the night. Planting Station Blueprint White for crafting. Level 1 planting station. Required materials: iron ingot x2, lumber ×5. Can be hung beneath or mounted on top of the cable car. Occupies 1 square meter of space. Used for growing plants. Gathering skill book. Unlocks the gathering skill upon learning. Allows harvesting common flora. Raises the chance of gathering white grade or higher supplies. Harvest success rate is determined by target quality and skill level. Dismantling skill book. Unlocks the dismantling skill upon learning. Can take apart ordinary items. Raises the chance of obtaining white grade or higher materials from deconstruction. 5 blueprints in all. Sumu inwardly marveled. Just how much had she profited off those warmth supplies? Private chat. Sumu. The fuel negotiation becomes aggressive, with Lin Yu trying to limit the exchange, while Sumu pushes for multiple blueprints instead of a token payment. At this point, Sumu reassesses fuel, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. Sumu read through the messages and thought rapidly. Judging from her tone, she must have other countermeasures against the monster assault. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so confident. This woman was truly sharp. His offer of 4 had been a high ball opening for bargaining. 2 barrels for 3 blueprints was likely the hard ceiling. Sumu wasted no time and made his selection first, the bear trap blueprint. He wanted to test whether catching the attacking monsters with it would grant experience points. Without the gathering skill, he would miss out on white-grade resources he came across. That would be a terrible waste. Dismantling was equally valuable. Monster drops for things like iron ingots were extremely rare, and few people could fight monsters as readily as he could. Dismantling changed everything. Smash apart residential windows for glass essence. Take apart cars and iron gates for iron ingots. It opened up mass material farming. The roller blueprint could wait. His cable car's original rollers were still at full durability. No urgent need, nor did he need the planting station right now. He had no seeds, and sourcing soil would be troublesome. Private chat Sumu. Bear trap. Gathering. Dismantling. 3 blueprints for 2 barrels of fuel, prompting Sumu to reassess fuel blueprints before choosing his next move. Sumu correctly suspects Lin Yu would never reveal her best stock, so he treats the visible blueprints as negotiable surplus rather than priceless treasures. Let's cut the mutual probing and stick to a clean trade. Sumu agreed. Private chat Sumu. It's a deal. Both opened the trade interface. Sumu placed 2 barrels of fuel into the slot. Lin Yu put into 3 blueprints. They tapped confirm, trade complete. 3 yellowed blueprints materialized in Sumu's hands. First, he used the gathering and dismantling skill books. Learn gathering, learn dismantling. He confirmed both. 2 faint glimmers flashed, and new skill icons appeared on his system panel. Gathering level 10 out of 100. Dismantling level 10 out of 100. Seeing the experience point bar, Sumu's attention sharpened. Both skills could level up. Presumably, like most game mechanics, repeated use would fill the bar and unlock higher ranks. Still, a worry nagged at him. Now was not the time to dwell on that. He opened the 3rd blueprint. Fits the cable car's external weapon slot, or can be deployed on the ground to lure mutated creatures. Powerful clamping force. Break-free probability varies with target level and quality grade. Notice this blueprint permits 1 single craft, prompting Sumu to reassess blueprints before choosing his next move. That made sense for a consumable blueprint. On the upside, obtaining a crafting station would unlock the recipe permanently, so he wouldn't need duplicate copies. More importantly, this opened a new piece of equipment, the crafting station. Clearly, crafting gear later on would require this facility. He wondered if anyone had looted one, and whether Lin Yu possessed it. Sumu hesitated, but decided not to ask. Even if she had it, he had nothing left to offer in exchange. He thought back to the preview of the roller blueprint Lin Yu had sent him, whose stats he had memorized. It would definitely come in handy down the line. But right now, his priority lay elsewhere. Sumu turned his gaze toward the window. Fist-sized flying creatures kept slamming violently against the glass. Tap, 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 tap. A non-stop hail of impacts. Sumu took out an iron ingot and activated the bear trap blueprint. In the next instant, the iron ingot dissolved into light and merged with the blueprint. Roughly 3 seconds later, a half-meter wide metal trap appeared in his grasp. Bear trap level 1 white. Type trap. Target size small creatures. Escape chance. Ordinary creatures cannot break free. Higher quality targets gain major escape bonuses against the trap. So Sumu understands the device is reliable only against small, low-level creatures. Previously, there had only been 1 external weapon slot on the roof, but upgrading to level 2 had added a second. Deploy bear trap. Confirm. Through the control interface, Sumu could see it hanging out on the roof, glinting coldly in the darkness. The flying monsters continued their relentless assault. Tap, 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 tap for the level upgraded level 2 cable car. This level of attack was trivial. Armor sat at 40 points. Durability had only dropped by 1%. Sumu could sit casually atop his stacked supplies and peer out at the blurry shapes outside. Visibility was terrible. Darkness mixed with heavy fog reduced the monsters to shifting black silhouettes. Sumu shifted his focus to the newly placed bear trap. Catching prey would boil down to luck. 10 minutes slipped by with 0 results. Monsters swarmed all around, yet none wandered into the trap's position. Sumu stayed patient. Sumu evaluates fuel and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Sumu read for a while, then closed the channel. He couldn't avoid them. Right then, a system chime rang in his ears. Ding. Bear trap has captured prey. Sumu perked up and opened the external camera feed focused on the roof. The metal trap was clamped shut. It thrashed wildly, beating its wings, but the steel teeth held fast. Bear trap status. Prey captured. Instead of retrieving it right away, Sumu held off. He still knew almost nothing about the creature. Pulling it inside while it was still alive risked it breaking loose. For all he knew, it might possess strange special abilities. He would wait for it to die first. Time ticked on. Impacts continued to rattle the windows while the trapped spectral bat struggles grew weaker, and its wing beats slowed. 3 minutes passed. Ding. Level 1 spectral creature defeated. A mutilated resort worker rushes Sumu with unnatural speed, confirming that Red Bean Resort contains corpse-like monsters rather than ordinary survivors. The heavy metal trap clanged against the floor beside Suma's feet. He looked down at the dead creature. It was roughly human fist-sized with wings, claws, and a plump body resembling a bat at first glance. Yet there were stark differences. Most unsettling was its face. Nose, eye, and mouth were all present, yet horribly misproportioned. One eye was far larger than the other. Its mouth stretched all the way back to its ears, lined with countless fine, sharp fangs. Its mismatched eyes remained wide open, staring fixedly at Sumu and death. Its skin was nothing like thin batwing membrane. Sumu prodded it with the head of his axe. Hard, extremely hard. It felt like sun-baked earth or thick keratin, producing a dull knock sound when tapped. Its color was dusty brown, blending in with soil, explaining why it was so hard to spot in the dark. The whole creature exuded an uncanny aura. Simply looking at it gave Sumu a visceral sense of unease, as if something was trying to intrude into his mind, forcing his gaze away. Spectral Bat Level 1 Race Spectral Stats Notes. Lowest ranked strange race creature lives in packs active at night. Inclined to ram moving objects. Stats cannot be displayed. Requires relevant creature compendium or special talent. Cannot view stats. That was a first for Sumu. When he had encountered goblins before, he could view their stats once he got close enough. The spectral bat showed nothing but question marks. The strange race. This world held not only mutated wildlife, but also this separate category of spectral beings. Sumu filed that information away. Next, he tried using the dismantling skill. Dismantle spectral bat. Confirm. A faint light flashed. Dismantling failed. Received. Nutrient substance ×1. Dismantling X+1. Dismantling had failed. Sumu thought of his Icefire Dual Cotton Seed. That seed required soil, regular watering, and sunlight. This nutrient boosted growth and specifically mentioned shade-loving plants. He had no idea whether Icefire Dual Cotton qualified, and even if it did, he lacked a place to plant it. He refused to hunting for soil anytime soon. He stowed the nutrient away. Then he glanced at the wooden drop box left by the defeated spectral bat sitting outside the cable car. He wondered whether it would still be there come daylight. A prompt popped up. Notice this item is located outside the cable car. Item retrieval is unavailable while under active attack. Manual retrieval is a level 2 cable car privilege. Sumu let out a quiet sigh. Outside, spectral bats kept throwing themselves at the hall. Attacks had lessened somewhat, but they had not stopped entirely. He would have to wait for the assault to die down. The first successful capture had raised his expectations for the trap. Minutes later, another alert chimed. Ding, bear trap has captured prey. Sumu tapped retrieve prey and repeated the process. Inspect the corpse. Attempt dismantling. Receive nutrient substance and leave the exterior drop boxes untouched. For now, he noticed a new detail this time. The first beast trap has already lost some durability, reminding Sumu that even passive defenses will eventually need repair or replacement. At this consumption rate, the trap would break after 30 captures. Still, that felt reasonable for a white-grade common trap. Getting any use out of it was already a win. Every few minutes, the bear trap trick triggered again. Ding. Bear trap has captured prey. Level 1 spectral bat defeated. Experience +1 ding. Bear trap has captured prey. Level 1 spectral bat defeated. Experience +1. Experience trickled steadily upward 5,457,616,570. Meanwhile, the cable car appeared to be gradually traveling out of the spectral bat swarm zone. Sumu checked the trap. 14 durability points remaining. Total kills. 16 spectral bats. Netting 16 experience points. Not every kill dropped a loot box. Only 4 boxes from 16 kills. Cable car durability stood at 99%. Only 1% lost. Yet it served as a warning. Given enough time, these creatures could wear the cable car down completely. He couldn't afford complacency. He needed to raise his cable car's level as soon as possible. Monster impacts had grown sparse. Only one strike every dozen seconds or so. Sumu tried clicking the exterior wooden boxes on his interface. Retrieval was now possible. Collecting them required clicking each one individually, which was tedious. He tapped 3 times in quick succession, and all 4 boxes teleported into the cabin. Sumu brought up them one by one. Received spectral crystal X1. Received spectral crystal ×1. Received spectral crystal ×1 spectral crystal. He picked one up and examined its description. Spectral crystal white type basic material effect base material for forging, refitting gear, and enhancing items. These drops were completely unlike the goblin loot from daytime. Goblins gave food, water, iron ingots, and glass essence. Practical survival supplies. Spectral bat drops were strange race-related materials. No food, no water, no fuel. Two separate loot systems, perhaps. When he opened the fourth box, his movements paused. Instead of a crystal, a yellowed blueprint lay inside. Received crafting station blueprint white. Sumu's attention sharpened. The crafting station. Sumu builds a level 1 crafting table, permanently opening reliable production instead of depending on single-use blueprints for every defensive tool. The crafting table recipe requires basic metals, glass essence, strange crystals, and lumber, all materials Sumu can realistically gather or trade for. After spending earlier resources on the cable car upgrade, he checks the remaining stock and confirms. Strange crystals are no longer the bottleneck. He had just received 3 strange crystals, which was enough. Only lumber. He had none at all. He had not gotten any from killing goblins during the day, nor from defeating strange bats at night. Sumu brought up the trade channel. Trading 8 food portions secures the remaining lumber and iron, completing the material set Sumu needs for immediate construction. He could probably have haggled for a better price, but Sumu didn't bother. He needed to finish building the crafting table as soon as possible. Monsters still lingered outside. Another beast trap would let Sumu keep farming experience, while the nighttime creatures remained close enough to trigger his defenses. The survivor knows this kind of safe experience farm is rare, so he intends to exploit it before the opportunity disappears. At this point, Sumu reassesses blueprints, iron ingots, glass essence, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. In the next instant, the materials vanished from his backpack. Faint light coalesced inside the cable car and slowly took shape. Roughly 10 minutes later, a metal tabletop 1 meter square and half meter high stood before Sumu. Fixed slots lined its 4 corners, giving it the look of a workbench. Crafting table level 1 white. Function, craft mastered items. Craftable list, beast trap level 1 white. Upgrade required materials. The crafting table's next upgrade demands strange crystals, steel, bulletproof glass blocks, and 1 strange wood material that Sumu does not yet possess. The crafting table didn't require experience to level up, only materials. That was good news. But steel, bulletproof glass blocks, strange wood. Strange wood, however, judging by its name. It was related to the strange race. It would probably drop from nighttime creatures, or be received through some special method. Thinking about upgrades was premature for now. Sumu pushed the crafting table into a corner. The cable car, already crammed with supplies, grew even more cramped. Sumu ignored the tight quarters and opened the crafting table interface. As expected, only beast trap was available, prompting Sumu to reassess iron ingots before choosing his next move. 2 minutes later, a brand new beast trap appeared in his hands. Sumu mounted it onto the cable car's external weapon slot. He then took out the corpses of the strange bats he had defeated and tried to decompose them one by one. Decomposition failed. Obtain nutrient ×1. Decomposition experience +1. Even so, Sumu let out a relieved breath. Gaining nutrients and experience, even from failed decomposition, was quite decent. Nutrients were useless for the moment, but they would likely come in handy once he started planting. He had also earned 16 decomposition experience points. Sumu brought up his skill panel. Decompose level 116. Out of 100, gather level 1 flash. 0. He needed 84 more experience points to reach level 2. He wondered what would change when Decompose leveled up. As Sumu pondered, the pounding against the windows suddenly intensified. Tap, 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 tap. The noise was denser than ever. Sumu examined toward the window. He opened the cable car status. Beast trap triggering. Beast trap triggering. Ding. Beast trap has captured prey. Ding. Beast trap has captured prey. 2 notifications rang out almost simultaneously. Sumu's spirits lifted. Was this the final assault? The impacts against the window grew wilder, as if the strange bats were launching a last desperate charge. Sumu studied intently at the 2 beast trap status readouts. Beast trap captured level 1. Strange bat escape chance 1%. Escape failed. Executing. Level 1. Strange bat. Experience +1. Ding. Defeated. Level 1. Strange bat. Experience +1. Another hour passed. Experience points 91 out of 100. Then silence. No more impacts came from outside. The dark shapes faded into the thick fog as if they had never existed. Sumu studied blankly at his experience bar. 91 out of 100. He was only 9 points short. Sumu drew a deep breath and slowly exhaled. There was no use forcing it. He checked the time. 4:20 in the early morning. Several hours remained until dawn. Sumu retrieved both beast traps. He collected the dropped loot boxes, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move, without taking unnecessary risk. He opened them one after another. Received strange crystal times 1. Received strange crystal times 1. Received strange crystal times 1. 7 strange crystals in total. No blueprints. Sumu felt no disappointment. Getting the crafting table blueprint had already been a stroke of luck. Adding in his gains from the goblin pups on the first day, his current supplies were as follows. Special items. Tier 1 Strength Type Breakthrough. Talisman, X1 meters 500 Revolve Morsels, Time Swords, 7 skills. Gather level 1, Decompose level 137 100. Experience points level 191 0. Seeing that 91, Sumu itched for more. Only 9 points separated him from level 2. One more wave and he would advance. Unfortunately, Sumu shook his head and forced the thought aside. Tempting as it was, he had to accept reality. Gaining 37 experience in one night was already an unexpected boon. During the day, fighting hard against numerous goblin pups had only netted him 54 points. He was about to close his eyes for a short rest when splat, a dull impact sounded. It was not the rapid tapping from before. It sounded like a large lump of wet mud smashing hard against the glass. Sumu's eyes flew open. What was that? Outside remained pitch black, rowing with thick fog. He could see nothing. Yet he could tell this impact was completely unlike the strange bats. The bats' blows had been light, fragmented, and rapid. This one was heavy, muffled, and forceful. Sumu checks the cable car status and finds its armor still intact, while durability remains high despite the repeated nighttime impacts. The previous hour of relentless pounding had only worn away 1% durability. Those heavy strikes had not caused extra damage. Sumu relaxed slightly. His relief didn't last long. Splat, splat, splat. 3 more blows in quick succession. The frequency was rising. Sumu grew cautious and fixed his gaze on the window. Darkness was all he saw. He could only listen to the sounds. The mysterious impacts continue every few seconds, and Sumu watches the durability gauge fall slowly instead of collapsing all at once. After roughly 5 minutes of repeated impacts, the carriage loses only a small amount of durability, proving the upgraded shell can endure the assault. At this rate, with 2 or 3 hours left till dawn, the cable car wouldn't break entirely. The problem was that he had no way to repair durability loss. He couldn't let it keep taking damage like this. Sumu's hand drifted toward the pistol at his waist, then slowly dropped back down. He couldn't hit anything in total darkness. He had tested this back at the Goblin Den. Even with the rule-based weak point targeting talent, he couldn't land an axe blow on a goblin hidden behind obstacles. Sumu suspected targets had to be within his line of sight. Moreover, thrown axes lost damage at long range, even when striking weak points. He couldn't spot the creature outside. Firing would only waste precious bullets. He also had a hunch the creature's position exceeded his effective firing range. Otherwise, with his talent that locked every attack onto monster weak points, bullets should home, and even if he fired blindly. After more than 10 minutes of splatting, durability hit 96%. Sumu grew numb. He told himself it was like being nipped by mosquitoes. He would deal with it at dawn right then. Click a crisp metallic clamping sound. An elite strange bat nearly breaks free from the roof trap. So Sumu retrieves it into the cabin and finishes it with repeated axe blows. He switched to the roof-mounted camera view. Darkness shrouded everything, yet the system showed a silhouette. The creature was far bulkier than an ordinary strange bat. Where normal strange bats were fist-sized, this one was basketball-sized. It thrashed wildly, and strange bats struggled very little once trapped and almost never escaped. This elite was different. Through the system feed, Sumu saw the trap's steel teeth shudder and its durability dropped fast. The trapped elite strange bat thrashes hard enough to shred the trap's remaining durability, warning Sumu that it may break free. Aiming at the dark shape on screen, immediately, he tapped Retrieve Prey. The next instant, the beast trap and the monster materialized inside the cable car. The trap clanged heavily onto the floor. Sumu gripped his axe firmly, his finger hovering over the pistol trigger, muzzle trained on the dark mass. He was in maximum alert mode. Was it already dead? Dull, wet chopping sounds rang out. Green blood splattered everywhere. He held fire. Every bullet was too valuable to waste. giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Only when the notification popped up, defeated Elite Strange Bat, level 1 green, experience plus 10, did Sumu stop swinging. It was 3 to 4 times larger than a regular Strange Bat, retaining the warped bat silhouette, yet much more grotesque. Its human-like facial features were distinct, not blurred. Its mouth stretched all the way to its ears, lined with the 3 layers of fine, sharp fangs, like shredder blades instead of the muddy, gray-brown skin of ordinary strange bats. That explained the heavy, loud impacts outside. Sumu brought up its system entry. Elite Strange Bat level 1 green. Race strange stats. Note low rank being of the strange race evolved variant of ordinary strange bats. Stats cannot be viewed. Obtain relevant codex or talent to unlock again. Its stats stayed hidden. As a green quality elite monster, he wanted to wait until Decompose reached level 2. It might yield rare materials. It was wooden like the others, but marked with faint dark cyan patterns along its edges. Sumu brought up it. A yellow blueprint rested inside. A small arrow magazine blueprint gives the cable car an active roof weapon. But Sumu still needs a wooden arrow recipe before it can fire. Required materials: strange crystal times 5, lumber times 10, arrow magazine stats, height 0.5 meters, attack mode auto reload, auto aim auto fire ignores gray mist. The roof-mounted arrow magazine can fire across a broad area around the cable car, but every volley still depends on a supply of crafted wooden arrows. Wooden arrows can be crafted at a crafting table. Sumu's mouth twitched reading the note, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. He would have to craft wooden arrows too. 1 iron ingot could make 10 arrows, so material cost was moderate. But he had not received the wooden arrow blueprint. The system had not provided it. Sumu massaged his temples. Great, another blueprint he needed to find. Still, his priority was building this arrow magazine. Its firepower was only 7 points lower than his green level 3 revolver, perhaps because it was a vehicle-mounted weapon. Unlike the passive beast traps, this weapon could attack actively. With it, he would no longer be forced to sit and endure heavy impacts during night raids. Before that, however, he needed to reach level 2. The 10 experience points from the elite kill had pushed his experience over the threshold, wasting 1 point of overflow. He took out the tier 1 strength type breakthrough talisman. He didn't use it straight away. Instead, he fetched a bottle of mineral water, poured a little into his palm to wash blood off his face and hands. It was not that he was overly clean obsessed. He simply wanted a small moment of preparation before triggering this power unlocking process. Finished cleaning up, Sumu grasped the talisman and steadied himself. The talisman dissolved into golden light and merged into his body. Sumu had expected a simple flash of light and number changes on his panel. What happened next exceeded his expectations. Warmth welled from his abdomen and spread rapidly through every limb. The 100 accumulated experience points turned tangible white light, flowing inside him like countless tiny streams, scouring every muscle and bone. The sensation was strange. It was not painful, yet he could clearly feel drastic physical changes taking place. A faint foul odor began emanating from his body. Sumu checked down. Gray-black sticky grime oozed out through his skin, carrying a light stench as if his body was purging impurity. Before he could think it over, his skin grew taut. Muscles that had been soft from long hours of sedentary work tightened, reshaped by an invisible force. His chest, abdomen, and arm definition sharpened. His shirt stretched tight across his frame. After a dozen seconds, everything calmed. Sumu clenched his fist. Something was different. Very different. The strength potion he had drunk before simply made him stronger. This transformation reworked him from the inside out. It was much more than just stat increases. He rolled his shoulders. His formerly lean build had filled out. He was not a hulking brute, but now looked lean and powerful. Sumu brought up his character panel. Name Sumu. Level 2200. Race human. Hunger value 75. Strength 26. Constitution 8. Agility 8. Spirit 17. He had gained 10 attribute points total. 8 had gone to strength with 1 each to constitution and spirit. Sumu pondered. From what he could tell, these 10 attribute points were distributed randomly, though weighted heavily towards strength. The 8:1 ratio might either be fixed or purely random. The 10 new attribute points favor strength heavily, giving Sumu a major physical increase rather than a balanced but weaker improvement. The 8 points poured solely into strength, raised that stat by fully 1 out of 3. Such an increase translated to much more combat power than the raw numbers suggested, especially paired with his talent. All attacks strike monster weak points by lock-in. A faint smirk tugged at Sumu's lips. If he ran into an elderly goblin now, he could cleave it down with a single-act strike. No more of the tense struggle he had endured earlier that day. Sumu closed his eyes, slowly exhaled, then opened them again. 3 golden cards hovered before him. The flame icon appeared once more on the first card, inscribed with the word luck. Another luck option. Joy flickered across Sumu's face. If this icon had not been absent during his first talent draw, he would have assumed it appeared every round. It seemed either his luck was exceptional or this talent had a high spawn rate. Without lingering thoughts, he read the 3 options revealed on the flipped cards. Option 1, rule-based. Carrying capacity permanently increased by 100%. Option 3, crafting. When crafting items, there is a 10% chance to consume 0 materials. Sumu's gaze locked onto option 1 at once. Rule type, another rule-based talent. He promptly grasped its meaning. For blind box draws, gotcha pulls, and other luck-reliant events, he would always receive the best possible reward. For instance, opening a chest with multiple random drops would grant him the top-tier item. A random reward roll would yield the highest grade prize. This ability, though he had yet to encounter many luck-dependent scenarios, the existence of such a talent implied such situations would definitely arise later in the game. Moreover, he turned to the other 2 choices. Option 2 doubled carrying capacity. That was quite practical. With 26 strength, his base carry limit sat around 130 kilograms. Doubling this would let him haul much more scavenged resources on expeditions. Option 3 offered a 10% chance to craft without expending materials. Mass production of consumables such as wooden arrows would save large quantities of resources over time. All 3 for solid picks, but rule-type talents stood in a league of their own. Sumu didn't hesitate and reached out to select option 1. Selection successful. The golden card dissolved into specks of light that merged into his body. Silence returned. Once this was finished, Sumu brought up the trade channel. The smacking sounds from outside had vanished after the elite strange bat was defeated. Ordinary strange bats seemed to have retreated entirely. Dawn was drawing near. He could bargain at leisure. Sumu posted a purchase request in the channel. Buying wood, 5 rations for 10 wood. Messages flooded in immediately after he sent it. Most were requests to barter other goods or haggle for higher prices, which Sumu ignored completely. Sumu arranges a steady wood purchase from Jun, turning another survivor's safer tree-cutting route into material for his own defenses. There was a short pause before a long reply came through. Private Chen Jin. Don't ask. Chen Jun explains that his first landing zone contained little except dense woodland, leaving tree-cutting as his safest dependable source of materials. He chose lumber gathering because it offered steady returns without the same risk as entering towns packed with unknown monsters. Chen Jun had already harvested 20 units of wood, and still held most of it, making him an ideal recurring supplier for Sumu. Everyone's short on food right now, prompting Sumu to reassess food before choosing his next move. Who would trade rations for plain lumber, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Risky as it was, with careful positioning in a relatively safe zone, would be farmed reliably. Still, Sumu refused to doing the chopping himself. Chen Jun had gotten lucky, cutting trees without drawing aggro. Sumu remembered his own past attempts at lumber harvesting. Loud, cumbersome, and guaranteed to attract hostiles, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Sumu offers to keep buying Chen Jun's daily wood output, creating a simple arrangement that benefits both survivors without requiring them to meet. Rather than risk raiding towns for supplies, steady tree cutting feels safer. Limit yourself to 10 wood per day though, and stay alert. Sumu exchanged 5 rations for 10 wood, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Sumu brought up the crafting station and selected small arrow crate. Craft level 1 white tier small arrow crate. Consumes strange crystal times 5 with times 10. Roughly 15 minutes later, a half-meter tall small arrow crate appeared inside the cable car. Sumu retrieved one of his bear traps, then moved the small arrow crate via the interface to the external weapon slot on top of the cable car. Mount small arrow crate. Confirm. The crate locked firmly into the roof mount. Through his interface, Sumu watched it swivel its turret in a full rotation, scanning its surroundings. Unfortunately, It had no arrows to fire. Sumu reopened the crafting station and checked the wooden arrow recipe slot. Empty. He lacked the blueprint. After sending the message, Sumu pondered. Wooden arrows logically required only two components, wood and iron. He massaged his temples. He would need massive quantities of wood going forward. Gathering it personally was impractical. Lumber was heavy and harvesting carried significant danger. Securing a steady supply via Chunjun made sense. The real bottleneck remained the wooden arrow blueprint. He pushed the problem aside for the moment. He had been up half the night. Sleep was essential. Fatigue would prove deadly. Once daylight arrived, he closed his eyes and quickly fell into deep slumber. Sunlight seeped through his eyelids, and Sumu instinctively turned his head away. The brightness was overwhelming. Frowning, he opened his eyes to blinding golden radiance. Sunlight streamed through the cable car glass, flooding the whole cabin. Sumu raised a hand to shield his vision and sat up slowly. He had slept curled among piled supplies, leaving his neck stiff, yet his overall condition was excellent. Level up to level 2 had noticeably improved his physical state. He checked the system clock. 9:34. He had slept for a little over 4 hours. Rubbing his temples, he glanced at the player count counter in the corner of the channel. 892 survivors. The number gave him pause. Before his previous sleep, the count had stood at 93. Given the night-long assault from strange bats and freezing temperatures, he had expected casualties in the hundreds. Level 1 cable cars only possessed 10 armor. Repeated bad impacts, even individually weak, could wear a vehicle down to destruction over hours, especially with the elite bat present. Only 11 deaths, he furrowed his brow, had those bats targeted him specifically. Upgrading his cable car hardly qualified as an act that would draw such aggro. Still, the elite strange bat's appearance had always felt suspicious. Ordinary strange bats were widespread. Yet, perhaps upgrading the cable car had produced some aura that lured them. Sumu shook his head. He couldn't solve the mystery right now and set it aside. He refocused on the regional chat. After the brutal night, the overall atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Where yesterday there had been panic, confusion, and hesitation, today players were actively organizing, looking for teammates. A veteran soldier named Zhao Jinghua had emerged as a Diacto community leader. He posted a lengthy message. Joinua, listen up everyone. Before landing, abide by these core rules. First, team up with adjacent players. Cable car IDs run sequentially so nearby players land at similar times and can support each other. Second, pick a shared landing zone. Identify landmarks such as water towers, tall buildings, or smokestacks as route points if possible. Third, do not overloot once down. Gather basic necessities and pull back. Fourth, stay calm when encountering monsters. Everyone knows goblin stats. High strength, low agility, coordinated groups can defeat them. Zhao Jinghua asks nearby survivors to post their identification numbers and locations so he can coordinate safer scavenging groups for the next descent. Hundreds of replies flooded beneath his post, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Some eagerly signed on. Others asked procedural questions, and dissent also appeared. Some survivors argue for safer wilderness scavenging, despite poor loot, while others insist towns are necessary for clothing, tools, and better resources. Sumu evaluates warmth supplies and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. The town raiding faction argues that wilderness foraging cannot provide blankets or warm clothing, making settlements dangerous but necessary before another freezing night. Sumu evaluates warmth supplies, goblins, and adjusts his next move according to the immediate risk, available resources, and the rules already revealed by the system. Remember, 3 camps formed within the channel, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. One faction prioritized safety, advocating wilderness foraging and tree cutting despite meager yields. Another embraced high-risk, high-reward tactics, pushing for town raids to acquire clothing and valuable loot. The third remained undecided. Seeing merit on both sides, Zhao Jingyu refused to force consensus. Zhao Jinghua, everyone's situation differs. No pressure. Those heading into the wilderness should also form teams for mutual support. Above all else, come back alive. Sumu read the discussion without commenting. The general mood was reasonably constructive. While selfish players certainly existed, people were at least attempting cooperative survival. That benefited him. A stable environment let him develop without expending constant energy guarding against other humans. Even so, he kept his guard up. In such a large player base, all sorts of people existed. After reading for a while, he closed the channel and turned to his main tasks for the day. He opened his daily intelligence interface. Remaining uses 1. Use intelligence scan, he confirmed. The familiar chime-sounded intelligence report. The next intelligence report points Sumu toward Red Bean Resort, where a bronze chest and fortune spinner sit behind a dangerous level 2 patrol. Upon closer inspection, it was a single report listing 2 points of interest, a bronze chest and a level 1 fortune spinner. Sumu's attention sharpened. A fortune spinner? This was the perfect chance to test its power. Then the warning seized his focus. A patrolling level 2 mutated creature. A level 2 monster against an ordinary level 2 goblin. If it was an elite green variant, however, Sumu touched a handgun at his waist. Damage bonuses should apply versus level 2 foes, according to known combat rules, yet he only held 7 bullets. During his previous silver chest incident, the intel had only flagged a level 3 mutated creature. Yet, hundreds of goblins and multiple minotaurs had surrounded the site. Red Bean Resort was clearly an amusement park tourist spot. If monsters nested there, more hostiles might well be present. On the upside, open amusement park grounds offered good visibility for scouting and retreat. Should he go? Sumu made his decision almost instantly, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. Yes, he knew firsthand how valuable bronze chests were. The level 2 bulletproof vest from one had saved his life. The silver chest had yielded his handgun seeds and strength potion, doubling his combat power overnight. The fortune spinner promised excellent rewards as well. Risks existed, but he possessed advanced warning, a powerful firearm, and his new special talent, cowardice, would only get him eliminated from this game. Sumu began preparing. The system time read 10:0. His cable car traveled at 5 kilometers per hour, so reaching Red Bean Resort would take roughly 1 out of 2 hours. Plenty of time. He inventoried his supplies. Durability sat at 87. Fully serviceable. His 2 bear traps remained. One had 18 durability left, the other only 88. They might prove useful, so it was better to bring them. He packed a water bottle, a ration of bread, and several chocolate bars inside his bag. He strapped the axe to one hip and holstered his handgun on the other. Finished with preparations, he checked his private message inbox that he had posted his wooden arrow blueprint buying request before sleeping, and numerous notification markers lit up. At this point, Sumu reassesses blueprints, iron ingots, food, using the new information to refine his immediate survival plan without exposing unnecessary risk. Sumu read every message and ignored them all. He exited private exchange and checked the public trade channel. No player was selling crafting blueprints either. That made sense. Sumu checked at the bustling team. Up discussions in the channel. So many people heading down today. Maybe more blueprints will circulate when everyone returns tonight. He watched for a while longer, and time slipped by quickly. The cable car pressed onward, drawing closer to the green coordinate marker. Sumu stood by the window and gazed out. The sea ahead gradually came into clear view. There stood a cluster of brightly colored buildings. Red roofs, white walls, neatly scattered villa-style small buildings. The roads were painted in vivid hues, and road signs bore the faint words, "Welcome to Red Bean Resort." Su checked his system map. The green coordinate lay within that complex, roughly 2 kilometers from his current position. The village was likely teeming with monsters, and a direct entry would easily land him in danger. From the perimeter, he could observe the situation inside and make concrete judgments. Thus, after scanning below the cable car and spotting no moving monsters, he pressed confirm. Sumu steadied himself, slung his backpack over his shoulders, gripped an axe in one hand and a pistol in the other, and stepped firmly into the vortex. When his vision returned, Sumu discovered he was in a bamboo grove, though calling it a pure bamboo grove would be inaccurate. Bamboo stalks stood sparsely dotted among broadleaf trees. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the branches, dappling the ground with patches of light and shadow. Sumu scanned his surroundings. No monsters in sight. Still, he didn't relax his vigilance. Gripping his axe tight, his gaze slowly swept across every shadow and every thicket of bushes. Only after confirming the area was safe did he begin assessing the terrain far ahead. Faint outlines of scattered buildings emerged. Red roofs, white walls. Exactly the resort complex he had seen from the cable car. That ought to be the visitor center, or accommodation zone. Further in the distance, the colorful amusement facilities flickered in and out of view. Once certain there was no immediate danger, Sumu first checked his map to mark his retreat points. One lay toward the town ahead, a second far behind the whole town, and the third pointed in a direction completely opposite to his current objective. That left only two viable fallback options, the one inside the town and the one far forward beyond it. Which of the two he would use depended on how events unfolded, yet both required him to advance deeper forward. Sumu oriented himself and began moving toward the cluster of buildings. He kept his footsteps light. Every few paces he paused to survey his surroundings, resuming movement only after ruling out anomalies. Several minutes passed with no encounters. The woods were quiet, an eerie kind of quiet. No birds chirped, no bleak insects buzzed. Not even the wind made itself clearly heard. Sumu furrowed his brow and kept walking. After a while, a faint smell of blood drifted into his nostrils. He halted at once, crouched slightly, and swept his eyes wearily over every corner of his surroundings. Nothing stirred. The scent of blood came from straight ahead. Sumu tightened his hold on the axe, lowered his posture, and advanced slowly. About 20 meters onward, he spotted the source at his feet. A cat, or rather half a cat. Its corpse lay in the grass, torn clean in two across the midsection by some creature. The front half remained while the rear half was nowhere to be found. Visca trailed across the ground, dried and blackened. Mud and blood stained its fur, though one could still make out its original orange tabby coloring. Susu squatted down to examine the wounds. No marks from blades, no crushing blows from blunt weapons. These were bite, tear injuries. Ragged edges showed muscle fibers ripped apart by brute force, and clear tooth marks ended the bones. It looked as though something had seized it in its jaws and torn it forcibly in two. Sumu stood, his expression growing heavy. This creature had ripped it apart and fed on it. Judging by the tear patterns, whatever had done this possessed extremely sharp teeth, far beyond those of an ordinary wild beast. Sumu didn't linger. He circled the corpse and pressed onward. His steps grew even quieter, his gaze more alert. A few more minutes passed. Sound echoed from up ahead. Not monster roars, but footsteps. Sumu darted behind a tree and peered out from cover. Through the sparse trees, he made out a human-shaped figure heading in his direction. It moved slowly with an odd gait, its posture unnatural, one shoulder riding higher than the other, its steps staggering. Sumu grew cautious. Another player. That was plausible. Other riders from earlier cable car runs might have spotted the buildings, chosen to land, and crept in from the outskirts just as he had. Anyone operating alone ought to possess some measure of strength. He maintained caution toward other players, giving Sumu enough context to adjust his next move without taking unnecessary risk. A meeting would likely amount to nothing more than two weary parties passing each other by, yet the next moment, his frown deepened. The figure seemed to have spotted him. Instead of veering away or ignoring him, it broke into a direct run toward his position, and it moved fast. Its shoulders heaved violently up and down. One leg dragged while the other sprang forward in jerky bounce. Its arms flailed with exaggerated amplitude, as though its joints had been wrenched out of place. Not human. Sumu reached that conclusion in an instant. Rather than turn and flee, he gripped his axe and fixed his gaze firmly on the rapidly approaching shape. They had been hundreds of meters apart. Poor forest light had obscured details. Now closing to roughly 100 meters, the creature's appearance became fully visible. It was a male corpse, or what had once been a man. Blue shirt, dark trousers caked over with blood and dirt, until their original colors were unrecognizable. Its skin was ashen, tinged with bluish black, stretched tight over its bones like cured jerky. Its eye sockets sunken, eyeballs cloudy, pupils completely unfocused. Half its lips were missing, exposing black and gum tissue, and a few remaining teeth. Most horrifying of all was its torso. Its abdomen had been hollowed out. From below the chest down to the lower belly gaped a massive cavity. All internal organs were gone, leaving nothing but an empty body cavity. Several ribs jutted out as jagged white bone shards strung with dried streaks of blood. A huge chunk of flesh had been chewed away from one calf, revealing blackened bone beneath, which explained its dragging gait. Its arms told the same story. Its left arm was severed below the elbow, the ragged break showing clear signs of biting damage. Its right arm stayed whole, but every finger bent backward at the joints, hooked like claws. It charged straight for Sumu, and across that twisted face hung what looked like a grin. Not a conscious expression, merely a physical distortion. Its half-gone lips stretched wide to bare its cuts, creating the illusion of a smile. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Sumu's veins. Not fear, raw tension. He had fought goblins before, mostly juveniles with limited threat. Even the elderly goblin had been a suspense hallway encounter dealt with by wild swings fueled by adrenaline. This time, he watched the abomination bear down on him firsthand. Grotesque, twisted, gory. The visual impact was incomparable to fighting goblins. Sumu drew a deep breath and forced himself to stay calm. At the same instant, the creature's stats floated into view. Zombie level 1 strength 17 constitution, 12 agility 8 spirit 0. Its attributes were comparable to a goblin, slightly lower strength and constitution similar agility. He could win this fight. Su kept hold of his axe. 100 meters, 80 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters. Sumu held perfectly still. He waited, waiting for the right distance. As the corpse closes the final distance, Sumu waits until it enters his effective throwing range before committing to the attack. Once the target is close enough, Sumu hurls the axe without careful aim. Because his weak point rule makes conventional precision unnecessary, the thrown axe curves into the corpse's most vulnerable point, and a second impact follows so quickly that Sumu notices a ghost-like duplicate. The first hit buries the axe into the creature's skull, while the follow-up effect repeats the damage before the corpse can recover. The mutilated resort worker collapses, confirming that Red Bean Resort contains corpse-like monsters rather than ordinary stranded survivors. The body convulses twice and becomes still, giving Sumu another clean kill without spending any of his scarce revolver ammunition. With 26 strength and guaranteed weak point targeting, Sumu understands why the corpse could not survive the thrown axe. What surprises him is not the kill but the doubled weapon image and two separate impact sounds produced by one throw. Those two impacts match the rule of his newest cable car talent, proving the extra strike activates on a successful hit. Sumu realizes the doubled impact came from his new follow-up talent, which automatically adds another attack whenever the first one lands.